Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. This event is being recorded for those who couldn't make it to today's event, and I hope that I'll be able to ask your questions to Elnaz. So today we have Elnaz Sarraf, who is the CEO and founder of the award-winning company ROYBI Robot, which is the world's first AI-powered smart toy, which teaches children languages and STEM skills. So we've previously seen it on many videos, teaching students math, for example, and it is completely revolutionary. So having said that, I'd like to keep this introduction short because we do have a lot of questions for your background, Elnaz, but would you like to take a minute just to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me, first of all, and I'm quite excited to be here and share my experience with you guys. As you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of the company ROYBI. We started the company a couple of years ago, and I'm sure we are going to get into a lot of details within this conversation. I'm also pretty involved in the tech community, for example, being on Forbes Council. So I hear a lot of questions. I share my experience with people that they are trying to build their businesses. They're interested in entrepreneurship. So I'm quite excited to speak with you guys today.
Great. So Elnaz, the first question to you is, could you tell us a bit more about what it was like growing up in Iran and possibly contrasting Iran with sort of the US in terms of opportunities and culture?
Sure, absolutely. I keep saying is the difference is like black and white. We are talking about many years ago, because back in Iran at that point, everything was quite different and women didn't have the opportunities that they have today. I moved out of Iran about 15 years ago, but I keep hearing that things have changed. People are now, especially women, have a little bit more opportunities. But to give you an example, my father was a businessman, and but the interesting part was that my mom was actually the one behind the operations, finances of the business, but she couldn't really be the face of the business, and she did a lot of different things, and that even really helped me to become a strong person and become an entrepreneur. But as I just mentioned, as you can imagine, the opportunities are really limited. So when I moved to the US about 15 years ago, I pretty much grasped the opportunity, because here a lot of things that mattered back in Iran don't really matter, and people only care about your skills, your background, in terms of what you could do to contribute to the community. And I started my entrepreneurship journey by actually going door to door, giving flyers to people. And then from there led to my first company. I co-founded iBaby, which we have baby monitors. We launched into major retail stores around the world. And then I moved gradually towards ROYBI.
Thank you, Elnaz, sort of for that quick introduction about sort of the difference between Iran and the US, as well as how your mom was, a figure that you actually looked up to quite a bit when you were growing up. I wanted to touch up on something that you just mentioned, which was your first company, iBaby, right? So just to recount for everyone, so iBaby is, as Elnaz said, a baby monitor company, and you've also worked with a company called, or at least you founded a company called iFamCare, if I'm not wrong. So it seems like, iFamCare, iBaby, ROYBI Robot, they're all targeted towards the same industry and the same market. Could you tell us sort of about your motivations with founding these companies? And were you always interested in the market that focused on children?
Yes, that's a great question, actually. iBaby and iFam, they're basically, they were the same company, but different branding. And so the way that started is I always wanted to make a huge difference. And to me, to make a difference in the world, it really starts by helping children. It's like I started by helping to create products for babies, because that's the earliest age. They always say even you can start learning by age 0, and which is true. And when we started the company, actually, our company was the very first company to introduce a technology for baby monitors to use apps, your mobile phone, rather than the traditional displays that baby monitors have. Before that, everybody would just carry those traditional displays with Bluetooth range, and they couldn't really monitor their kids, their babies outside the home. So that was a huge deal. When we introduced the technology, Apple actually brought all of our products into all their stores worldwide. And many people thought it's an Apple product, actually. They didn't think there's another company behind it. And then from there, I got the opportunity to talk with a lot of parents. We used to have a lot of focus groups, and I would go to a lot of meetups and talk to people to understand the pain points. And everybody around me jokes that our products keep growing in terms of age range. I think it just happened by accident, but I always wanted to do something different for children. And of course, education is a huge passion of mine. It had a very big impact in my own life, and I wanted to give that back to other children around the world. And that's how the transition really worked out.
Awesome. I didn't know about sort of the Apple side of this. Could you tell us a bit more about that? What was it like partnering with Apple? How did you facilitate that? Who reached out to whom? Do you mind telling us a bit more about how that worked out for you?
Sure, absolutely. It was quite challenging. I have to say it was very exciting, but at the same time, it was very challenging because, Apple has very high standards. So a lot of things had to be changed, and making sure everything from packaging to documents, the product, the quality, everything is towards Apple standards. So in terms of who reached out to who, it was based on one mutual connection between two companies that they made the introduction, and things went ahead. And at that point, there was no other product on the market like this to utilize Apple's technology. And for the first 2 years, we were actually iOS only. So Apple gave us a lot of support. And one really good thing about working with Apple team was that they always wanted to be involved, even from the time that you only have sketches. They wanted to be involved, meet with us, help us design the product, grow the team and everything. And that even taught me a lot. Even right now, today, if you look at our product, ROYBI, even the packaging and everything, everybody says it's like Apple style because, we learned how to deal with, I wouldn't say elegant style, but, Apple style, like everything white, the font size, colors, and everything. And it has been amazing because it helped us to really even understand how to expand in different markets in terms of localization.
That's very refreshing to hear. I was wondering, is Apple still a part of the ecosystem that you've built? Is it still a part of iFamCare? Is it still a part of iBaby? Is it still a part of ROYBI Robot? Do they still sort of have any affiliation with you, or have you taken those lessons and sort of detached from Apple entirely?
So for baby monitor, I know Apple discontinued carrying any baby monitors, and even for STEM products, we did have conversations 2 years ago. But if you look at Apple, they changed their entire strategy for STEM toys. So right now, they don't have any products in that category, but we do have the relationship, and I'm sure in the future some exciting things are coming up.
Awesome. I had a few more questions just quickly about your background. I'm curious to know what it was like working in the World Business Angels Investment Forum. Could you tell us a bit more about what that is? What kind of projects did you work on, and what did you learn from your time there?
Sure, absolutely. It's an amazing organization. They reached out to me because they wanted to diversify their team, the members, and it was really important for them to have women in the financial industry. As you know, there are not so many of us in tech and investment. So it has been quite an interesting collaboration. I would have the opportunity to review some, for example, startup documents. Even on a daily basis, I constantly get pitch decks and companies reaching out for investment purposes. And I also learned that I got connected to a lot of influential people around the world through the organization, which we made friends. which is quite exciting and interesting. But what I like about it is the diversity that they're really looking to build, and they're really looking to empower women and even minorities and people that they do not have access to fund around the world. But they want to make an impact. It is a work in progress, of course, but I encourage everybody to they have a link. They encourage everybody to apply. Even use my name as a referral. And I'm sure they will be able to review documents, and they do have in-person and also online events for startups to present, actually.
That's actually great to know. I'll definitely refer the World Business and Angels Investment Forum sort of to our entrepreneur society, because I'm sure a lot of them would be interested in that. I'm curious to know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what's a recent sort of pitch deck or startup document that you've looked at that has really piqued your interest? What's something that has stood out to you in the past few months or maybe weeks that you think is an amazing startup in any industry?
Right, it's really hard to say, because to be honest, every founder that they reached out, they're excited about their companies, and even if it's not area of my interest, that doesn't mean the startup is bad or the idea is bad. But generally, I really get excited about pitch decks or ideas that they're very innovative. Sometimes even, you think, oh, is this even possible? And when you look at the founder's background, when you talk with them, it gets you excited. Generally, I look at industries like education, AI, and very recently blockchain. So those actually get me really excited.
Sure. So I actually noticed on your LinkedIn that you're sort of a Web3 NFTs enthusiast. How have you sort of explored that passion in more recent days? Is it through this investment forum? Is it through your own self-learning? Do you reach out to your connections? Can you tell us a bit more about what you've learned, in recent times?
Absolutely. No, it's actually a personal passion, and I really believe in this technology. Of course, it's going to take some time for it to mature, and we have enough resources. Right now, it's very early. And, unfortunately, because of so many things and news we hear in the crypto industry, some people think it's shady or scammy, but actually it's not. There are a lot of good projects out there. And even for our company for the past 2 years, I can't get into a lot of details, but we are also shifting our focus. And I do see a huge potential in the education and even AI space utilizing Web3 blockchain technology. And that is something I'm advocating for. And I'll be speaking at a conference very soon about all the possibilities. So please do follow. And I highly, highly recommend for a lot of companies, if they have the opportunity to look in the technology, to go for it, because digital and blockchain and being able to create communities, DAO communities managed by people, not by big corporations and so many other things, would be the future. And I'm very passionate about it. I'm quite involved in the space.
That's great to hear. I'd like to now shift sort of the focus of the event now to ROYBI Robot in specific. And I'd love to hear, how did you get the inspiration for ROYBI Robot in the first place? Was it born out of iFam Care and iBaby, or was it something else that just sort of struck you one day and that you decided to build?
I would say it was partially because of, what I was doing at iBaby, and I was constantly having the opportunity to communicate with parents, and even, very small things that they used to ask, are they going to be more lullabies, some educational materials? I actually originally wanted to build this through within the network of iBaby, but eventually decided it's a very different, company and structure. So to split it, and then as I mentioned earlier, my passion for education and children is very big. And my co-founder shares the same passion. He has 3 kids and constantly talks about their education, homework, and all the challenges. And we really wanted to create a technology utilizing artificial intelligence to focus on every child's abilities and interests rather than one size fits all. And although, you know, pandemic was quite challenging, but also really helped us to accelerate the growth of the company, because a lot of parents and even educators reached out to us asking to utilize ROYBI as a homeschooling tool. So that has been quite an interesting journey. But I'd say mainly through personal passion that the company, the idea came about, but it was very different in the beginning than what you see today.
Do you know much about sort of your demographic or your majority of your target users? Because I'm curious to know, right? So you mentioned homeschoolers and people and households that just want to use it for homeschooling purposes. But I'm also wondering what percentage of your total user base are homeschoolers compared to people who want to supplement their regular learning styles with this robot?
It's very hard to say right now. And the reason is that our product actually provides different material and resources. For example, our main focus is on language learning. Right now, we have English, Chinese, and Spanish, adding French very, very soon. And then there's another group that they actually utilize ROYBI for STEM learning, you know, science, math, and more. So it's really hard to say what percentage, but we know that a lot of people are just using it to learn different languages and STEM skills. But at the same time, we have customers, parents that reach out to us and they say they're actually using it for homeschooling. And then we have customers on autism spectrum with speech disorders. That actually really motivates me, especially because we know that we are really making an impact, and it's quite exciting for sure.
So, building off that, I wanted to know exactly how does the robot work, right? So you mentioned that there are some uses of the robot for language purposes and there's others for STEM. So I'm curious, are they totally different robots? Are they the same robot with different software? Do you have to buy the robot? Do you have to buy the software? How does the whole thing work?
Right. So first of all, it's here. So you can see it. It's pretty small and really easy for children to hold. It took us about 4 to 6 months to really come up with the design, which is slick and it's not heavy. It's small enough for kids to hold it. But in terms of the program, so they just buy the robot. There's only one product, but we do have different programs. So when they go into the application that we have for it, they can select which programs they want to play. Obviously, we show parents a path of lessons, but at any time they can actually pick and choose and decide what kind of topic they can use. We did have a pilot test within schools. The teachers actually picked and chose different subjects based on the daily curriculum that they have. So it's very open and easy to use.
I was also curious, so you mentioned that there's a lot of different applications of your robot itself. Does each of those applications come with an additional cost, or is it all, does it all come with just buying the robot? So if I bought a robot today, for let's say my younger brother, could I just teach him everything that I wanted to through that robot, or do I have to pay additional amounts for different sort of software?
That's a very good question. So it actually comes packed with over 1,000 lessons right now. And the majority of those are in English language. And then we have some sample lessons in different languages. But additional programs, the premium programs, there is a cost associated with them, but it's not a monthly subscription. It's on-demand purchase. For example, one program comes with 10 different lessons in different languages. We also have premium content, about dinosaurs or teaching kids more advanced math. So the customers, the parents can buy based on whatever they like. There's no forcing people on subscriptions. We actually don't like that.
So, definitely ROYBI has had so much success these past few years. I'm curious to know what previous sort of experiences that you have that helped you found and scale ROYBI, right? So you mentioned earlier that obviously that partnership with Apple helped with its packaging and its designing and marketing. But was there anything else that sort of helped you along this journey? with overcoming certain hurdles?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say that's a small part of it. When you, so at iBaby, I was responsible for global sales, marketing, operations. The only thing I didn't do was the manufacturing because my co-founder would work on that, especially that we were doing everything, the manufacturing in China. And we have the same structure right now at ROYBI. So considering that on a daily basis, I used to do a lot of different things. I could have never imagined when I moved from Iran to here, one day I go to all these big retailers like Walmart, I go to Arkansas and then talk to the buyers and sell my products to Walmart. We were at 800 Walmart stores, and then Target, Best Buy, and all the places around the world, considering, there's so much into it, from inventory management to localizations, as I mentioned, certifications, and all the aspects of other kinds of operations, sales, agreements, even legal. So I'd say 5 years was quite a long time to learn a lot of things, also make a lot of mistakes. Obviously we are not making the same mistakes, but even in this company, we are making different kinds of mistakes, which are learning lessons. And I always tell all entrepreneurs, it's okay to make mistakes because you learn in the process.
Sure. And sort of to conclude my questions, at least before I hand off to Aditya to ask a few questions, I wanted to know, where's the company today? What are your latest updates, your features? I know you mentioned that you're working on integrating French into one of the into your programs. But other than that, are there any other updates that we can look forward to? What are your latest milestones? Just tell us anything about where you are right now.
Sure, absolutely. Of course, I cannot give a lot of details, but I can tell you that we are adding 3 languages this year. One is French, and then we have German, Japanese. We are expanding our retail presence, so we are going into more stores and also expanding around the world. Also, even if there are people interested in partnerships, we're more than happy to speak with them. But at the same time, we are working on our virtual platform, which I mentioned. It is quite related to Web3 and blockchain. You will be hearing a lot of great news from us within the next 2 to 3 months. So please do follow up. And we will be having, even now, we have about 15 open positions, So definitely stay in touch. And we are hiring from all around the world, all remote, and lots of perks within the company.
Awesome. I think that piqued everyone's interest, right? I think people watching this recording and right here, right now, would love to sort of work for such an established company. But having said that, I don't have any other questions as of now. So I'd like to yield the floor to Aditya to ask a few questions that he's prepared.
Thank you.
Hello, Elnaz. I'm Aditya from GDSC India ITER. So am I audible, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, all good.
It's very nice to have you here with us today. I am going to ask some of the questions that will focus mainly on the entrepreneurship, as Avinash is asking some of the very brilliant questions related to you and the ROYBI Robot. So first question will be, what failure or losses did you face along the journey with ROYBI Robot, and how did you overcome them?
You said failures?
Yep.
Okay, that's a good question because first of all, being in a situation quite different over the past 2 years, I first of all, I wouldn't say anything is a failure. I always say it's just learning lessons, and you get better and better. But if you actually repeat the same mistake again, that's a failure.
Yeah.
But I would say a lot of challenges, especially that over the past 2 years, we had to deal with manufacturing, supply chain issues. We had great sales, but we didn't even have the inventory to support it. Everything was stuck in China, and we are going through exactly the same thing even now. But I'd say for any challenge, you really need to weigh different options. You need to talk to different people. For example, not just within our internal team, but we also have great advisors. They advise us on different situations. but be open to listen to feedback, because when people give you feedback, that means they really care about your growth. And that's how you can overcome the challenges, not failures. And don't see anything as failure. Even if something fails 100 times, just try again, because I'm sure there is a way to make it happen. Just be adaptable to change. That's all.
Yeah, that's great said. Moving on to another question. During the initial stage of a startup, one of the main hurdles is to get a good investment for the company. What are your suggestions that can boost the chances of getting some investment easily?
It's not easy. Raising fund is definitely not easy, and it's really not related to industry or even the stage or the idea. It's really about the team. So you really need to make sure you have a very strong team behind your company. So when we were fundraising, we had a lot of challenges. It took us time to find the right investor. And imagine there are billions of people in this world, and you need the one investor to believe in your company and write the first check. And it's hard to get that. But of course, when you have a strong team, the investors, especially angel investors, or even earlier than that, they really look at the strengths and skills of the team, because they know if the idea is this today, it's not going to be the same thing in the next 3 to 5 years. They understand that, but they need to make sure that the team is strong enough to actually adapt to change and continue growing the company. And in terms of raising funding, there are a lot of ways right now that those were not available in the past. For example, a lot of companies do crowdfunding, both on selling their products and also equity crowdfunding. There are angel forums. You can be a part of it, apply to those. Reach out to people on LinkedIn. We did that a lot. It worked out for us. So please do so. Don't be shy. And people, they would get back to you if they're interested. And then just go to meetups, talk about your fundraising to people, because you never know who knows who. And unexpectedly, you can just meet some people and they would become interested. And also, I know there are a couple of lists out there on the internet for angel investors and people that you don't really need an intro. They're very open to receiving introductions or emails, from just cold emails and cold calls. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you for the answer, Elnaz. So one question, what's your daily life as an entrepreneur actually like? Is there a lot of hectic routine, or it's not like that?
Yes, it is. It is very hectic. It like for me, my day really starts at 6. I get up. The first thing I check on my emails, and I do have labels with priorities. Some internal communications. Those are the first things I look at. Some other ones I send them to the other departments or team members that they can take care of them. And then, gradually by 7:30, my calls start. And then it could be 1 hour, I'm talking about sales, another hour is investment, another one is marketing or sales, in terms of placing products into different places, and development, product features, even customer service issues. And then it goes on. And sometimes, because we don't have really necessarily time zone and we are a global company, sometimes even I have phone calls 10 at night. So I have to take care of those. It's hard to balance, but I'd say gradually you will learn how to balance and prioritize your personal life and business. But be careful, because as entrepreneurs, we are always so excited to make great things happen, and we may burn out without even realizing.
That seems quite hectic. So I'll ask one last question from my end. How do you manage all of your responsibilities like ROYBI Robot, Forbes Technology Council, Consumer Technology Associations, and so on?
So you mean the responsibilities within the company?
Yeah, like you.
Okay. So I'd say again, your team is your biggest asset, and it always takes time to for the team to really understand the vision and learn about the culture of the company, the responsibilities. But at the same time, like for me, when we have new people, I know the first 2 months will be quite difficult. You need to trust people and even allow them to make mistakes, because that's how people learn, and give them enough guidance or even training to have the ability to learn and grow within their responsibilities. And as an entrepreneur, even for me, a lot of times I want to do a lot of things by myself. And then I keep reminding myself, I have to delegate some tasks to people and trust them that they can actually make it happen. And that's how you can stay on top of a lot of things that happen. Just make sure in the beginning, you give people the right direction, instructions, and be open, even if they make mistakes, so they can come to you to ask questions and not be scared, of telling you about those things. And then gradually, I always say, you make a copy of yourself. People learn more and they know what to do down the road.
Thank you, Elnaz. We surely learned a lot of things from you. Thank you for answering all my questions. And now I'd like to request Avinash to take over.
Sure. Yeah, Elnaz, I just wanted to touch up on something that you mentioned earlier, about the fact that you're hiring and all this kind of stuff. I'd like to ask, how can we apply, right? So naturally, a lot of students hopefully will watch this recording, and to the students here, what's the best way to sort of reach out to you?
Positions right now, they're available on our website, ROYBIRobot.com, so you can apply on there. And then a few more positions still not there, they're going to come up within the next 2 weeks. The team is working on them, so keep an eye on the website. And also you may follow me on LinkedIn, because I generally announce those as well. And feel free to reach out. I always try my best to respond to as many people as I can. And yeah, that's probably the very best way.
Cool. And I'm also wondering, could you tell us a bit about the ROYBI Robot, company culture? Just what is it like to work there? What kind of people do you have currently working with you and under you? And also, what do you look for in a successful applicant?
Sure. So in terms of the company culture, I'd say we are a very friendly, fun, passionate team, but we also work very hard. There is always a limit or line between friendship and the actual work. So everybody knows, their responsibilities. But we all communicate all the time. It's not that because somebody is, for example, an admin and somebody is chief of marketing, they can't communicate. No, we are very open. Everybody in the same boat. Everybody needs to communicate efficiently to make sure, the product launch and features and everything, they're all in place. Also, we are very flexible in terms of working hours, working remotely. But again, as I mentioned, we really work hard because we are a startup and we need to make sure everything happens quickly. Otherwise, the competition is going to go ahead. And then I forgot the second question you had.
So the second question was, what do you look for in a successful applicant?
Yes, I also remember you mentioned about the people working with us right now. So we have people in marketing, in sales, engineering. And for the people that we look for, obviously some skills are important, especially when we are looking for very specific niche in terms of, for example, engineering. But a lot of times we are also really looking at the fact if this person is a good fit for our culture, and even if we are a good fit, for that person, because every time we hire somebody, it's an investment from both sides. So we really need to be careful. And also even some positions, in the past we had people, they didn't know how to use specific tools. We said, it's okay. We provide you training as long as you're willing to learn. And the strong personality, passionate about, what they're doing, and they see their job, not necessarily as a job, but something that they really love to do. Willingness to learn, less minimum supervision, basically self-starter, and again, willing to do whatever it takes to make sure all of us grow together.
Thank you, Elnaz. I think you mentioned earlier also that, obviously there is a work hard, play hard kind of culture. It is very fun, but at the same time, you work very hard. And if you don't, the competition sort of takes over. And that reminded me, I wanted to ask you a question about your competitive landscape. I wanted to ask you what other sort of AI robots are there in the children's market right now, and sort of how does ROYBI Robot differentiate itself?
There are some products very similar to ROYBI, but not exactly the same. It's a little bit of a crowded space when it comes to toy category, but many things are different. For example, we've actually built our own AI voice recognition technology. We hold a patent for it, so that's very different. It has been around for a few years. We also acquired a company to add to our technology. Our content is very different. The way that our robot interacts, creates reporting, all those are different, obviously. And also for the digital platform, the virtual platform we are working on, there is, at this point, there is nothing like it out there. So once we launch and make announcements, we will really be the leader in the category. And even with ROYBI, we were the first one launching this type of product within the market.
Awesome. I think also during one of our preliminary calls, you mentioned that ROYBI can talk with children even without an internet connection. Could you tell us a bit more about that and what that's like?
So that would be for our second version. This one is right now, the voice recognition is cloud-based, but for our second version, we are going to deploy our edge voice AI technology, which means everything happens on the device. There's no internet connection needed, and we've been building it for the past few years. We also have some other technologies behind it. For example, one of it we call Graph Builder. What we do is we can actually filter categories, or the way that kids talk is very different. Sometimes they can't even finish a sentence. So by just hearing some few words, we can kind of understand which category it is, and we can respond back. We can filter some words, and many other features, like, for example, voice diarization. We know who is actually talking. So all those will be available gradually on this next generation, but also on our virtual platform in the future as we launch it.
Awesome. I had one final question, and this is just about something again that you mentioned months ago when we first spoke, which was sort of the motivation towards, or the motivation behind ROYBI Robot was to replace outdated material that was taught in school. So I'm wondering, how do you keep your material relevant? Naturally, a lot of people already have these robots in their hands. Do you constantly update the material that they are taught and that they have access to?
Yes, pretty much almost on a monthly basis. We have updates, we have new content, and what we are really also focusing on is we always wanted to create a platform, a product that allows children to learn subjects that they don't even learn at school. For example, some finance, maybe small investments, business and topics like that, which we are working on adding those content as premium content to ROYBI. It's very easy, cloud-based. As long as ROYBI is on, the content gets loaded on the robot.
Awesome. Thank you, Elnaz.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone here has any questions for you. So if you do, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Elnaz, or you could type it into the chat if you can't unmute yourself, and I'd be more than happy to sort of read it out. I'll just give maybe 2 minutes for that. Or Elnaz, do you have anything you'd like to add in general? The time is yours.
Absolutely. I'd love to encourage everybody to work on their dreams. Of course, it's not easy. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, building companies. But if you want to become an entrepreneur, it's truly a rewarding journey. But be, aware of all the challenges and do not give up, because things gradually get better. Always the beginning is very difficult. But I also at the same time also want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to talk about my experience, company, and I look forward to hearing from a lot of people from this conversation and see how we can help them out.
Of course. It doesn't seem like we have any other questions, so I think we can end this event. Oh, sorry. So we have a question. Which company did you acquire and can you name it? So I think this was referring to something when you were initially scaling up.
Yeah, sure. The company is KidSense, and they were the only company that they provided voice recognition technology specifically for children. And we did acquire the company in 2020. And now we are working and building on top of that technology. They had a lot of customers. Yes, that is first KidSense AI. And then they had a lot of customers here in the US and internationally as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think there's any other questions. So I think with that, we can sort of conclude this event. But Elnaz, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Oh,
absolutely, my pleasure.
One second.
Sure.
So I think the question is more or less, how did you know that you were building sort of a robot with a nice design? How did you know that it was going to be at least a good invention? What was the iteration process like?
Well, we didn't really know exactly the whole process, but we knew a product, a technology like this is really needed within the industry, to personalize children's learning experience. It started from there, but it took so the idea started in 2017 actually, and we started talking about it late 2018. Founded the company in 2019, and the product got launched into the market in May 2020. So you can imagine all the changes. And I think some of the ways that we actually went about creating the product was that to get a lot of feedback. We had focus groups, we had parents and people to really help us. And then before even launching to the markets, we did crowdfunding, which we had early adopters, of course. They helped us a lot to shape the features, understand the bugs and problems that the product had, which obviously we also had a lot of issues before, really going into the market. And that really helped us to get into the right technology and fix some of the problems. For example, we had Wi-Fi issues, which got resolved and helped us a lot. And I have to say, it's a continuous change, continuous feedback and change and improvements all the time.
Awesome. I'm just wondering, Aditya, do you have any things you want to say before we end the event? Because I noticed you unmuted yourself.
No, Avnash, not a question from my side.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Elnaz. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And most definitely, I think you can, after I share this recording around, you could probably expect a few applications from myself as well as from the ITER school in India.
That's awesome. We can't wait. Thank you. And it was a pleasure speaking with both of you and looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Elnaz. Have a great day.
Elnaz.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.